Hi, I'm Cheryl Strachan, cardiac rehab dietitian and founder of Sweet Spot Nutrition. If you're struggling with eating after a heart event, if you're over here on the left in the fear and anxiety and confusion zone, and you want to get to that sweet spot over there where the food is delicious and heart healthy and right for you, this might help you understand why it's so hard to get there and what you can do about it. So, of course, at first, when you have a heart attack or another kind of heart event or any kind of, cardiovascular diagnosis, there's a lot of fear, understandably, and that can bleed over into anxiety around food. I can think of one individual in our community who described how after his heart attack, he lay in bed in the hospital alone because of the pandemic, thinking and thinking about the foods he'd had over the years and what he was going to change. People have described cutting out red meat, fast food burgers, potato chips, etc. At first, there's usually a strong overcorrection because there's so much of that anxiety, right? And there's also confusion. We have a cardiologist here locally who tells people to follow a plant-based diet and then just kind of sends them on their way. They sometimes find us dietitians and say, does he mean all plants, like vegan diet? So like no meat, no red meat, none at all. There's a lot of questions as you start to put into recommendations into practice. So at this point, usually the first thing people do, and you probably can relate to this, is they try to develop some knowledge, right? They try to learn all they can about diet and heart health, and they go on the internet and they maybe get some books from the library or buy them, and hopefully they take a class or meet with a dietitian at their local cardiac rehab program, all in an effort to learn about the what portion, what to eat, right? And for many people, that's kind of where it ends. But you can see here in my model that leaves people fairly far away from the sweet spot, right? If they have great cooking skills or a partner with them, they might be good to go here. But for most people, that knowledge alone is not enough. It's just a starting point, right? I mean, think about what else is probably happening at this time. Probably a lot more than you might have expected, right? You might be dealing with the unexpected side effects of medications. You might be going to more medical appointments than ever before. And at the same time, many people experience crushing extreme fatigue after their event. And plus you may still have your job and family and other life commitments. So who needs a major cooking project at this point? So these are just some of the things that make it hard to implement what you know, right? So at this point, I find some people look to meal planning, and that's great. That can help for sure. At first, I hear sometimes people say, just give me the meal plan. I will follow it. But that seldom works for long. What we do instead, if they're on board, is instead to set up tools and systems so they can do their own meal plans week after week and create something that works for them. Simple. I know that sounds complicated, creating tools and systems, but really it's not. And it helps, right? That definitely gets us closer to the sweet spot. But again, you can see it's not quite enough, especially if those initial attempts at diet change were very restrictive, which I often see where people really just say, I'm not having this and I'm not having this and I'm not having that. They may end up feeling really unsatisfied with food or hungry or both. And then our body's natural instinct to eat to survive will override all of your best intentions. So at this point, sometimes people look to recipes, which is great. And I do think that's the next step to expand your repertoire, right, of recipes, ideas for meals and snacks, cookbooks, and that can help for sure. I always say you have to experiment to find the cardioprotective foods that you really like. It is a process. And if you do that, look how much closer you are to your sweet spot, but not quite there, right? So what's the last piece of the puzzle there? You can have all the knowledge and cooking skills in the world, but actually following through and doing it consistently is another ballgame. Emotional eating, for example, might be a challenge for you. Or maybe you have an inner rebel that just says, you know what? I want a burger right now, and I'm going to have it. And those things are totally normal. In fact, everything on this top line here is common in my practice, and I've seen it over my 17 years working with people who have heart concerns. So if this is happening to you, I want you to understand it's very normal. It's not just you. So what do we do here? What's the last piece of the puzzle? So this last stage, we want to apply what we know about how to support people in making health behavior changes. Changing habits is a whole science, and it's different for everyone. But there are some practices that work well generally, things like habit stacking, which we'll talk about, and setting up your kitchen for success. For some people, this stage might involve working with a counselor, exploring their mindset around food, or journaling. It's the least straightforward stage, but if you're in that phase where you kind of know what you want to do, but you're not doing it consistently, then this behavior change might be the missing link. So in theory, it's like my pretty picture here. You would go in a straight line from one of these stages to the next. But of course, life is messy, right? And in reality, there will inevitably be some back and forth where, you're learning about, say, for example, new recipes, and that helps broaden your knowledge around nutrition science. Maybe make it more nuanced, for example. So you kind of go back and forth a little bit. Sometimes you slide back from your sweet spot and then, you get back into that place. That's okay. That's all normal too. But generally, these 4 steps are the path to success that I use to create my new Sweet Spot Kitchen program. So our big picture plan is to focus on the knowledge piece in June, meal planning in July, and then start with expanding your repertoire of meal and snack ideas in August. So from the start, I am planning to weave in some of what we know helps people be successful with health behavior change, and we'll do more of that as we get past these first fundamental steps. So for example, I sent around a self-assessment tool this weekend, which is key to goal setting, which we know helps people make progress, right? You have to get a good look at where you are so you can figure out exactly what it is you're trying to accomplish, where you want to go. And then it also helps a few months from now to look back and reflect, have I changed? Have I made some progress? So just sitting down and doing that self-assessment is part of the whole behavior change process. So I hope this helps you give yourself some grace if you haven't always been able to execute on heart healthier eating, something that seems very simple and straightforward at first glance, right? But may for many people turn out to be trickier than they expect. But it is doable. Yay. So if you want to join us on this journey and get closer to your unique sweet spot, there's a link below with information. The conversation is already underway in the community, which is really neat for me to see. I love it. And our live workshops will start this Thursday, June 9th, but they will be recorded. So if that date doesn't work for you, don't worry about it. But I will be closing the doors at midnight on June 8th. So if you want to join us, sign up today, and I hope to see you there.